just as a rule of.
But he still buys them for me. It's always in a bag. So I'm like, okay, this works. But yeah, I'm not watching. I have 2 suitcases for bags.
Well, it appears that everybody is present, so I would like to call to order the 10th regular meeting of the Board of Directors of SAD 52, and if yes.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So our first order of business would be to act on the minutes of January 26th. Any errors or omissions?
I'd like the minutes to reflect that the answer to my question about the assumption of neutrality or impartiality on the part of the book review committee was not answered completely correctly.
And that's in 8.2. Where's that? Where's your?
We don't have
That's not something that's.
full, like the minutes don't reflect
Yeah.
every single thing that everybody says.
Right. So if there's.
But I'd like to reflect that, please.
I'd like to hear that as a motion, please.
I move to amend the minutes to reflect that was oh, thank you. That was this week. Under 8.2 to reflect that the answer to my question regarding the composition of the review committee was incorrect.
We have a second. Discussion. Any proposed amendment? Starts with an F. So board practice is typically not to include that level of specificity. Like you'll notice that minutes don't include every piece of the various conversations, so that would be a departure from the board's practices in handling minutes.
I only request this because the deviation from policy, I thought, warranted a public acknowledgement of that. That's all.
Do you mean,
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think that it's my understanding that it says the board began deliberation and action. And I was gonna say basically what you said, we had long discussions within this that aren't included on here, so I didn't know what should and shouldn't be included.
other discussion?
Oh, I was just going to clarify that I don't know that what was discussed was inaccurate or if it was just incomplete. And I think that's a really big difference.
Other discussion? Minutes.
Well, in response to Jessica's comment, it was a question that could have been answered with a yes or no. There is a very clear answer to my question in that policy, and it was not given. So I think that it was incorrect. Whether that was through omission or whatever, it doesn't really matter. I think the public record should acknowledge that that was incorrect, and therefore the policy would be.
Other discussion? All those in favor of amending? Those opposed? Motion does not carry. So those minutes as presented, accepted for general consent. That brings us to public comment. Let me refresh everybody on public comment, public participation, various guidelines around that. The intent is to allow a fair and adequate opportunity for the public to be heard while ensuring that the time allowed for public discussion does not interfere with the fulfillment of the scheduled agenda. During the time allotted for public participation, members of the public may speak on any subject directly related to the operations of the schools, except for personal matters or complaints concerning specific employees or students, which shall be addressed through established policies and procedures. Members of the public may address the board within the guidelines provided in this policy. The chair shall be responsible for maintaining proper order and compliance with these guidelines. The following guidelines shall apply to public participation at board meetings. Citizens and employees of the school unit are welcome to participate as provided in this policy. Others may be recognized to speak at the chair's discretion. Individual employees and/or employee groups will not be permitted to discuss matters for which complaint or grievance procedures are provided. The chair may limit the time allotted for comments on a particular topic, as well as the time any individual may speak, and that's 3 minutes currently. In the event of a sizable audience, the chair may require persons interested in speaking to sign up so they may be called on in a fair and efficient manner. During the time set aside for public participation, the chair will be responsible for recognizing all speakers who must identify themselves as they begin talking. Speakers are not permitted to share gossip, make defamatory comments, or use abusive or vulgar language. All speakers are to address the chair and direct questions or comments to particular board members or the superintendent only with approval of the chair. Requests for information or concerns that require further research may be referred to the superintendent to be addressed at a later time. Members of the board and the superintendent may ask questions of any person who addresses the board, but are expected to refrain from arguing or debating issues. Questions must be addressed to the chair. No complaints or allegations will be allowed at board meetings concerning any person employed by the school system or against particular students. Personal matters or complaints concerning student or staff issues will not be considered in a public meeting, but will be referred through established policies and procedures. In order to make efficient use of meeting time, the board discourages duplication or repetition of comments to the board. The board requests that groups or organizations be represented by designated spokespersons. The chair has the authority to stop any presentation that violates these guidelines or the privacy rights of others. Persons who disrupt the meeting may be asked to leave, and the chair may request law enforcement assistance as necessary to restore order. All right. Who would like to begin?
I will.
And if you could state your name for us, that would be fantastic.
I'm Oscar Shostak from Green.
Kim, would you mind shutting the door so we can hear? No, it's just going to be unlocked. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oscar, you may start again.
All right. For a while now, we've had an optional mask policy in this district, and it's worked quite well. This is why I, along with many others, believe that it's time to continue doing what we've been doing, and that time is every school day. No one wants to return to mask requirements as it's unpleasant and extremely dangerous. One of the most sinister examples of this is the people, including me, who almost fainted due to the suffocation. We need to prevent a repeat of that, and the most safe and effective method is a policy change. Thank you.
Crystal Nicholas from Green. I am initiating the discussion to challenge George M. Johnson's book, All Boys Aren't Blue, in a written format. And should my concerns remain unsatisfied, I request a level playing field for a book challenge instead of a mere fate of impartiality. I'm addressing several concerns revealed during the previous challenge. Number one, guidelines on challenges provided by the Maine Association of School Libraries imply that once a book is placed in the library, it magically attains a broad immunity to criticism. These guidelines essentially coach staff on how to diffuse or redirect concerns. Professionals don't make mistakes, and parents should know by now it is not their place to second-guess experts. Number two, the standards and policy IJJ by which the school unit determines the suitability of a book are so broad and so vague that one would be hard-pressed to find a book that does not qualify. Nor is there any guidance to what selected materials it may not contain. It will surprise no one that there is no prohibition against collecting pornography. Number three, this book, as well as the previously challenged book, appeal to a much younger audience than the publisher states. Even the authors themselves, in their own books, name a younger target audience. I request, therefore, that middle school personnel be involved in this challenge. Number four, I request fairness in convening a committee. If, according to the policy, the committee should be generally neutral, who thought it was impartial to have the two very people responsible for the book selection on the committee to review it? If we are questioning the book's place here, we don't need the people who put it there verifying that they did a good job. Number five, I request an exemption to the utterly unfair policy designed to deflate a book challenge. Whilst the challenge form exhorts parents to be specific and cite pages and scenes, etc., to which they object, the assembled the assembled review committee is prohibited from evaluating content divorced from the entirety of the book. This policy needs to be aligned to recognize that a parent's time to pull parts and fragments of the text as directed cannot be ignored unless the point of this policy was to provide an empty gesture devoid of integrity and substance.
So just to follow up, you have submitted that form already, or intending?
I have some written copies, but I do have some documents to send.
So you're presenting that to the school?
Well, it's the discussion portion of it, but there's lots of questions.
So but the policy stipulates that there's a form that one needs to fill out?
Well, they actually say first you have a discussion. and then you fill out the form.
Okay, so the short answer to my question is no, you're not giving that to the superintendent this evening. Is that correct?
I understood from the policy that the first part is a discussion.
Right, not generally.
And then-
Board meeting that generally happens in the schools, I think.
Well, my point is that I have many concerns, and I have written them out so that the answers can be written. So that,
Okay, so, I mean, I think it's safe to say that the superintendent and I will connect with you to keep that process moving.
I can afterwards supply documents.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next.
Jimmy Giles from Leeds. Can I ask the chair a question?
You may ask.
Are you familiar with the direct link to the porn site in the book Gender Queer? On page 156. Okay. Well, it points to kink.com, the direct link in here. If you click on that, actually, even if you write that in your phone or on your computer, it comes right up to a porn site. So I think that's a little concerning. I didn't know about that either, so I was just curious if you guys did. I know I reached out a couple board members, and they also missed it. The porn industry is so big that pornography has now become a human health crisis, and it affects 16 to 20-year-old boys the most. Can I ask the chair, do you think that pornography puts young developing minds at risk?
Mr. Childs, I'm going to ask you to refer back to our policy and certainly address the board with comments that you feel are concerns or issues that should be of concern to the board, and not engage in what we kind of talked about in the policy is looking to debate perhaps
Yep,
with
I don't want
those
to.
on the board.
I don't want to debate, thank you though. Any action or situation, policy ACAB, prohibited use of school devices whether in school or at home. Accessing or communicating inappropriate materials, accessing, submitting, posting, publishing, forwarding, downloading, scanning or displaying defamatory, abusive, obscene, vulgar, sexually explicit, sexually suggestive, threatening, discriminatory, harassing, and/or other illegal materials. This should apply for any item in the school. Policy IJNDVR, the internet stuff. So I don't understand this. How come you can't look at this stuff on your internet device that belongs to the school, either in the school or at home? Because it could be mentally hurtful to any kids. But we can now have books that have the same content at the school. The wording, the amount of swear words and cuss words and vulgar language in that book, nobody wants their kids to talk like that. And it's very discriminatory towards gay and lesbian people to portray them in that view. You know, I talked to my aunts and my cousins, and they are very sick of it. They're like, they don't want to be portrayed like that. The book portrays them like that. You know, this is getting out of hand. We're not submitting ourselves, especially our children, to these augmented views and subversion of reality. We're not doing it. We'll be here until the end of time. Our kids ain't gonna believe this stuff. People have tried for years to turn red into gold.
You're at 3 minutes now. Thank you.
Cannot happen. It's impossible. Thank you.
Who do we have next? Who would like to speak?
Christine DeClissi, 2 kids in the district. And genderqueer Maya Kobat writes out several porn sites for the 11 to 14-year-olds about whose sexuality she is curious. She loved these porn sites and thinks your child will too. Since you voted to keep her book, I'm willing to bet you'll enjoy them as well.
So I think it's important to remind folks and anybody that's watching.
Can you pause my
that we
time,
do
Chair?
That we do have students here with us.
Yes, and this
So
is
we're minors.
but this is what's in your library, so why are you mad that I'm bringing it forth? This is First Amendment rights.
Just
of free
reminding the
speech.
folks watching that
Okay, perfect.
this is okay, as the previous speaker thought it was okay to forcibly enter the space around attendees at our meetings and show them these images as well. So let's all
A little ironic,
be
isn't it,
honest
Chair?
here.
Can you please Rewind that.
You know what, I'm gonna rewind by 30 seconds so you can have the
Thank
rest
you.
of your
I
time back.
appreciate it. We trust the experts that say this is good for our children, you tell us. We're saving lives, you tell us. But where's the evidence that this saved lives? What if there was evidence that this endangered the quality of child's lives as they mature, or even for the very lives school boards endeavor to save?
So you know what, stop. That's it.
You're in violation of my First Amendment rights, and I'm just making that known right now.
Yep.
You are? Okay.
Stop with the pictures. I'm pretty sure that I don't need my 16-year-old daughter.
I don't need it in the school, so.
So I'm gonna ask
This
you to
is the
remove
link.
that.
Okay. Put them down.
If you have commentary to share that does not include visual aids, I'd be happy to restart your 3 minutes.
May I finish?
If it doesn't include visual aids, sure.
Okay, I'll leave those down. I'm sure we all saw them anyway. Amanda Giordano writes in the February 2022 issue of Psychology Today an article entitled, "What to Know About Adolescent Pornography Exposure." In this, we learn that 70% of adolescents view pornography at some point in their lives. Though there will be always some who argue that pornography is good for children, the sex at 8 before it's too late crowd, the bulk of medical literature reveals that for adolescents, such exposure has been linked to permissive sexual attitudes, dominant or aggressive sexual behaviors, self-objectification, and body comparison. And importantly, the development of pornography-influenced scripts. In other words, kids who watch pornography have no idea what a healthy, normal relationship looks like, and they can only copy the actual pornography model. The lack of foundation in a healthy sexuality may take pornography exposure distressing or disturbing as children try to assimilate what they have seen. Youth may not have a mental representation or accurate view that informs them that what they are seeing is unrealistic, unethical, illegal, or abnormal. She further cautions that adolescent brains are in critical periods of restructuring or pruning, and that they be more susceptible and sensitive to the impact of pornography as compared to adults. The highly rewarding nature of pornography may lead some to lose control over their resulting in compulsive use. Some research suggests that problematic pornography use is associated with sexual dysfunction. That's it.
We have other folks that would like to speak. Going once? If not,
I'd like to speak.
yes ma'am.
I'm Marley Aguilar, and I have been a teacher in this district for more than 30 years. We have a really good district. We have great staff, good admins, and I see a small segment of the population that is very vocally attacking everybody. Staff, students, school board members, and if we want to keep staff, we need to stop that. There is a teacher shortage all over the country. We are experiencing it in our own district, and people are on their own individual tangents, and they are disrupting the education in our schools and of our students with this nonsense.
Point of order.
No, you don't get to do
She's
that.
talking about us.
You don't
With
get to do that.
this nonsense that is not in the best interest of all of our students.
Thank you.
Nonsense. Right here.
No, Mr. Childs, that's not acceptable.
We don't want none of our
That's
kids to
not
see this, Ms.
acceptable.
Bullard. We
It's
agree
not
with you.
acceptable
We would agree with you.
to interrupt the meeting, absolutely not. No, definitely not. Anyone else wishing to speak from the public? Judith.
Judith Glassman, I'm the librarian at Levitt, and I just want to leave the board with some positive thoughts as you head into your meeting. Every year in the Levitt Library, we do a reading challenge from January through the end of the school year, and I meant to bring my handouts for all of you. This year, we're doing it as a bingo challenge. Teresa already has several stickers because she's participating in our challenge. Students read books, a whole bunch of 16 different categories, and the Levitt trustees have helped to fund prizes. And so far, we started mid-January, so far we have almost 100 students and staff participating, and 197 books have been read so far. So it's a lot of fun. It gets people talking about books, and I've had more conversations with students about a variety of books, and it encourages them to try different kinds of books than they otherwise would, and it's just a lot of fun.
Thank you. Did we have anyone else wishing
I'd like to ask a question of our penultimate speaker, please.
You will ask it, you will address it to the chair.
Yes. I should like to know if any of tonight's speakers, in her opinion, attacked any of the board or staff.
So, we have two options. I can certainly pose that question to our penultimate speaker, Ms. Aguilar, if you would be interested in answering it. If not, I feel like I could answer it as well. Perhaps we both answer it.
We both should.
I think that sounds lovely.
We both should. I listen to the board meetings a lot because I have an invested interest in this district. I have not heard the board being attacked tonight, but I have heard it multiple times. I've heard them call names of the board and the admins and certain other people that should never be called of anyone.
All right, anybody else? If not, we can move along through our agenda. Communications. Carrie.
So we've added a substitute since I last reported to you district-wide, and nobody has resigned. We still have 14 ed tech openings. So we're holding steady. That's all I got.
Brings us to item 5, adjustments to the agenda. So we have any adjustments to the agenda?
My suggestion is that we move that to the end, the old business executive session, just for,
That's item 7.1. Is there any objection amongst board members to moving that to the end so we don't hold up some of our other presentations? Any objections?
I didn't hear it.
7.1 is an executive session that will involve only the superintendent and the board, so unless there are objections from board members, we could move that to the end. That seems acceptable. Thank you. That brings us to committee reports. 6.1, Finance Committee report. Crystal. And just to note, the next meeting is scheduled for March 23rd, 5 p.m. at Turner Elementary School.
So far away. Really far away. We met this evening in the library. Our first item on the agenda was an update for the coming year in the budget process, which Carrie and Gabby will give us more in detail on that, so I'm not even going to attempt to give an update on that. The second item was the energy supply contract, and Gabby has met with a second contractor. The rates have come down slightly, still hovering around like 11 cents. More to come on that. We reviewed December's financial reports, and we reviewed and signed payroll and accounts payable warrants. We had a little update on the diesel tanks and pumps, and there will be more to come on that. And Gabby is still catching up on the invoicing from 21, right, Gabby?
No, 21's done. We're good.
21's done. But the only fiscal year 22, well, the only thing left to do was SM3 funds.
Very good.
All right. And that unfortunately takes like 5 months to literally do. So more to come on that. And that's pretty much it.
Thank you. Item number 6.2, PTB. Next meeting is March 2nd, 5 p.m. at Green Central School. Brings us to curriculum policy. Jamie.
Yeah, we
And the
met.
next meeting, before I forget, sorry.
Yeah.
The next meeting is March 2nd at 5 p.m.
So we met tonight, and first thing on our agenda was some curriculum updates from Dr. Gillis. She just kind of piggybacked off of our last meeting where we had kind of talked about curriculum versus programs. She clarified that and then kind of educated us on how they are forming curriculum currently in the district. We reviewed policy GCRD, private tutoring by teachers. There were a few questions on that that were maybe back to, we tabled that one. At our next meeting, you guys will get policy IHBAJ, which is extended school year, IHCB, which is travel study, and IJOA, which is field trips. And then the third item on our agenda was board requested review of our professional development policy, MSMA revised policy, and one proposed by a board member. And we had a good conversation about that and did not finish before 6:30 came. So that will be tabled. We'll continue that conversation and give our recommendations to the board next.
6.4, Tri-Town Education Association Teachers, TTEA, negotiations. Jessica?
We did meet, we met with our teachers union, and we have decided we're going to go forward with interest-based bargaining, or IPB, which is a really nice collaborative method of bargaining. It's somewhat what we did our last run also, so somewhat familiar with those of us who've been part of the process before. We were given some education on the process as a team. We were also given some ground rules and some homework, so both sides are going to go look at those ground rules and come back together at our next meeting and review. Also, Tammy brought in some delicious cookies for everybody. I had way too many, and we've tasked our teachers union to bring in food next time.
Thank you. That brings us to the student representative report. Rock, paper, scissors, or?
So next week at Levitt, there's we have winter carnival, so we have like spirit days every day, and then we have a big day of games on Friday. So people will be excited for that. People are already started. So the theme is music genres. So exciting things. Books are being read.
Keep reading those books. Thank you. Move on to administrator reports. And we have printed, board members have printed copies of these. Yes. Meeting this evening. Mr. Shaw, however, is here. So if anybody had any questions on that report.
Okay. Betsy, can I just point out a couple of things? I want to really highlight the information about facilitating conversations with the 8th graders around course selection for next year. They were up at school last week, did some tours, talked with guidance, met with some upperclassmen, were able to ask questions. I'm not sure they had a lot of questions. They seemed a little overwhelmed perhaps, but then we followed that up with 8th grade parent night last Thursday, and we had, I said 65 families. It was probably more than that. I didn't get a good accurate count. There was a lot of moving going on. So, but it was at least 65 families where they got information around course signups, and they were able to ask questions because they're broken into small groups. Parents had way more questions than I think the 8th graders did the previous day. And they also got tours around the building. And then the last thing, it's not on the list that I shared with you, but today the football team and the golf teams traveled to the State House to be recognized for the state championships today. So that was an exciting trip for a very good sized group of students that went to the State House today.
Thank you.
Is this the first year that you're doing the student-led conferences, or have you always done that in the past?
We've been doing them for quite some time. Yeah. It's the first time we're doing them in the spring. Typically they happen in November, but we've been doing them for a while.
Great.
That brings us to the assistant superintendent.
Okay. So I want to highlight, I've been able to participate in many trainings lately. One training was a book club called Leading Equity-Based MTSS for All Students. I did this along with others, but from our district, Kim Fuller, Kristen Lebeck, and Christina Swenson. MTSS, or multi-tiered systems of support, is a system for decision-making in schools that covers whole school, grade level, classroom, and individual student needs. It is a system that drives continuous improvement in both academics and behavior. This particular session was led by Andrea Logan, who's the MTSS specialist at the Department of Ed, and provided a common text for Maine educators to read and discuss. It's the first of many book clubs taking place through the winter and the spring, and these are free opportunities offered by the Maine Department of Education. So I was pleased to be able to participate in that and learn quite a bit. Amelia Lyons-Rupima, the McKinney-Vento Homeless Education Specialist in the Office of School and Student Supports with the Maine Department of Ed, provided an informational session yesterday on McKinney-Vento with district nurses, secretaries, office staff, school counselors, and I was there. And Amelia shared the specifics around this McKinney-Vento law that supports students and their families experiencing homelessness. And our Director of Guidance, Heidi Poulin, is doing a follow-up session. We talked yesterday, I think sometime in March, with all of those folks to share with them what we do specifically in our district, the procedures that are in our district for that. And then I participated in several trainings on Maine's comprehensive assessment system, which I referenced in the last meeting. We are required to have an assessment system that produces a performance score based on state standards in order to meet the federal requirements. NWEA is the assessment that the state has been using. We've used it in our district. I think I might still have been in the classroom when we started using it. If not, I was definitely a principal here. And has partnered with Maine to create an assessment that not only meets the federal requirements, but will be, for our students at least, something that is quite familiar. Over the next several weeks, our district staff will continue to attend these trainings in order to gain the necessary information for implementation. And that's all that I have.
Any questions for Assistant Superintendent?
So I'll give sort of my regular report and then some budget information. So I was notified last week we have 5 teachers in our district nominated as part of the statewide Teacher of the Year process. So Jeff Sear was nominated, who teaches at Turner Primary and Leeds Central School. Isaiah Davis at the high school was nominated. Amy Duguay here at Turner Primary. Ashley Morneau here at Turner Primary, and then Will Parkin at the high school. So these nominations came from a range of people, parents, students, colleagues. Will let us know that you have to be a teacher for at least 5 years. So he's only been at 3, so he's like, I can't really move forward. But they opt into the process if they want to continue, and then would continue to participate. But I wanted to share that really good news. Last weekend's freezing temperatures resulted in issues only in the high school. I'm happy to report there were some other major issues at other schools that thankfully we did not have. 2 pipes burst, heating pipes burst in the high school, one in the office and one in the industrial arts. I'm going to let Evan correct me if I got it wrong, because I talked to Dave Coburn to verify. 2 pipes burst, but Tina Boucher, Paul Collins, and custodians Stephanie Whittier and Joe Cuvia responded and did a great job. Dave spoke very highly of the work they did, so there was really zero disruption to opening school on Monday. So I just wanted to thank those folks for doing their hard work on the weekend when it was minus whatever. And then this week I attended both the middle school professional development half day on Tuesday. Jana and her team had organized a variety of sessions for students, for teachers to be able to choose so that they could do what they thought was most useful for them. And they were sessions offered by the staff themselves. So it was a great opportunity for them to share across from each other. And thanks to Jana for walking me around to get a look at all of those. And then I was at the Turner Primary School staff meeting Wednesday morning that Kim led, and Lucy, Assistant Special Ed Director Lucy Davis, was there to review some safety care things to help the staff know how to respond when students are engaged in some struggling behaviors. And then Elaine Gammon also shared some resources. She's the instructional coach there, around titles that teachers could use of books for read aloud to help students with social skills. So it was really, both those meetings were super helpful to see what staff are up to. And then finally, what I'd like to do is provide you all with some information around the upcoming budget. So I've projected that there. I'm gonna make it bigger, and then I'm gonna go over there to be able to do a little teacher thing. Because that would be the easiest thing for me to do. Okay, so I gave a little bit of a heads up to the finance committee, but this document, which I've made really big so you can see, but they've called it ED 279. It is the document that provides the essential program and services, which is how states calculate how much money districts will get. So that comes out 2 weeks ago, like a draft version of that. And so for the last 2 weeks, Gabby and I, with a variety of other folks, to help us make sure that we are looking at this correctly, interpreting it correctly, making sure we understand the impact on our district. Because this is the fundamental starting block of all school budgets. So I'm starting on the last page, because like all good stories, there's a headline and then there's the reality. So there's a headline, so I'll give you the headlines. So I guess it's good news, but when you look at a spreadsheet, I've seen this from lots of superintendents around the district, we're all sharing information and talking, and when you look at a full spreadsheet of winners and losers around the EPS funding, we're on the loser side. But the good news is that we're only losing $107,000. So this is our total state allocation, and when you compare to last year, it's $107,000 plus minus some dollars from last year. So on the surface, we're like, okay, that's not a disaster. It's all the devil's in the details, however, that makes this a bigger concern for us as we approach budget season. So a couple other items on this last page. There's a shift in the local share and the state share. So let me explain that. So the state will provide us money. And the state and the agreement is, as part of this funding, is that to be able to get this money from the state, we as a community have to spend a certain amount. And the state tells us how much we have to spend, how much our community is capable of spending to receive the state money. So the state money that they send us, the share, is this amount here. And that's the one that's down 100,000. It's $16.4 million. And then with that shift and a couple other things, we look at the bottom, and the bottom, this is our total EPS allocation, which is $24,700,000, and it's in green, so I've done red for bad news, green for good news. Green, it looks good, because that number is actually $600,000 up from last year. So when you really think that through, like, how did that happen? How does this say that we're getting $600,000 more when we are up here, we're losing? So that's where the details come in. So I'm going to back up a little bit more to the previous page, and I apologize for making you busy. So the previous page is sort of part of the story. So these, make it a little bit smaller so that you can see. On this one, here's our towns, Green, Leeds, and Turner. And this is the state valuation that the state has said our towns have. That is up $68.9 million from last year's ED2. $68.9 million. I had to ask Gabby, like do that again, Gabby, because what? Almost $69 million is what the state has as our valuation. Last year's ED 279, the mill rate was 7.1. The state has increased that to 7.29. These are things that we do not control. This is what the state gives us for this information. We don't create the valuation. The state does that, and they calculate that. And then they say, based on that information, in the formula, they say how much each town is capable of contributing. And in exchange for that contribution, they give us the money. So when we look at this local share contribution, that is, the word here is required, it is $709,000 more than last year that we must get from the towns to be able to access the funds that the state is sending us. That is only for the bare minimum of EPS. So the bare minimum of EPS is $24,700,000. So we have to spend $8,444,000 of local funds. The state contributes its share to a total of $24,726. Our budget, like every school district's budget, is more than the bare minimum that EPS funds. EPS doesn't fund co-curriculars and extracurriculars. It doesn't fund a nurse in every building. It doesn't fund a certain number of counselors per student. So like the bare minimum they give is a bare minimum. So that local requirement is likely going to be higher than what the state is saying because our budget is not this bare minimum. So I think it's confusing because in the news we've been hearing that the state is finally funding its share. So I'm going to give you two more pieces of information. So on the very first page, if you start with the first page, it looks awesome. Again, it's in green, it's good news. The state has increased how much it's funding per pupil by $370 per kid. So like that's a big increase, right? And in a normal year, if our valuation hadn't gone up $69 million and they hadn't shifted to the local and all those things, and that would be in our benefit. One other issue that has finally come, this has been building, and I think for those of you who've been on the board for a while know this concern that we have had. I know we had in my previous district, that concern is no different here. In the funding formula, which I will tell you is incredibly complex, you get extra money based on the number of disadvantaged students you have. That is students who qualify for free and reduced lunch. Because the state knows that likely those students require more resources. So that extra funding was increased in the last 2 years by through the emergency pandemic laws. It was a 0.2 increased weight. It's gone back to the legal requirement of 0.15. And we have lost 257. We have 257 fewer students who are free and reduced lunch because of the struggle of getting people to fill out the forms. So we lost the potential of $359,000 in state subsidy. That was there last year, and it's not. So the state increased how much they're giving schools per pupil, but because we lost that source of resource there, that increase doesn't come our way really. Like as I heard somebody say, it could be worse. So they've increased the amount they're giving for each student. We lost that. We are not alone. We are absolutely not alone. Lots of schools that have a decent, have a fairly large population have lost that funding. So between that and the shift to local that is required, those two things is sort of like the perfect storm of us needing to require more from the locals. So I'm just giving that to you as a heads up. We will start the budget process obviously at the beginning of March. And Gabby and I, with the administrators, are working diligently because we know this is a piece of this puzzle. So we are very aware of that and have that as in the front of our mind as a concern in terms of being able to present a budget that we think can pass, also recognizing that there may be limits to what we can do because we're going to have to pass on those requests to the town regardless of what we do with our budget. So I'm just telling you. That is a reality. That is a reality. And every superintendent that I've reached out to make sure that I'm understanding this process are doing this exact same thing with their boards in the last week, this week, next week, sort of providing them with the unfortunate news. So that is where we are. I wanted to make sure you were aware. Obviously, we'll spend more time on this when we start the budget process in March. But that increase to the locals, that is a non-negotiable. We cannot not ask them for those increases, at least at this, at this level here. So I think I sort of gave you a little bit of a heads up, but I've begun the process of communicating with town managers. I communicated with state senators because the state is working on the budget right now in terms of whether or not there was anything that can be done differently. I've sort of raised those alarms for folks, and so now making sure that you guys are in the loop.
Questions?
I do have a question for the superintendent. How does the state determine the amount that it's going to require of the school system from its town? Is that determined by law?
Yes,
That tied
the EPS
to-
formula, all parts of it are in statute.
Okay,
Yeah.
and what is it tied to? Is it just?
Valuation.
Thank you.
And it's the, like even the calculation for how much the weight is for disadvantaged students, that is in statute. So it would require changing the law.
Right.
Yes.
Other questions?
Comment. I mean, I just feel that we're lucky to live in a little place. And I think it's really surprising to me to see real estate prices where they've been in some of these small homes that I've seen pop up in various farm fields around these. And it really is a shame that it is property valuation that is driving this, because that has certainly gone up in the marketplace. So, scary.
It's complicated.
Anything else for superintendent?
So the burden of determining where a student qualifies is on the district.
Absolutely. So I will say that I was given some information. The state, we're not the only state who's continued free and reduced lunch. So the states that continue with free and reduced lunch, I cannot list them for you. I don't know what they are, but I know there's multiple. They have been, because I've heard this from the Department of Ed, trying to work with the federal government to find alternative ways to identify students, because that really is the issue. And so it's just a matter of how to do that. But because it's federal, we can't change that.
Thank you.
And I think you mentioned it, but I just want to make sure I heard it. Have you already met with the three town managers?
Yes.
So they
Well,
have.
sorry, I had a lunch meeting with all three of them. Unfortunately, Joyce from Leeds at the last minute couldn't attend, so I need to follow up with her, but I did meet with Kurt and Carol.
And they have this information.
They have this exact information.
Thank you. We will continue that conversation as we get into the budget. So 7.1, just as a reminder, we're going to move that towards the end. So that brings us to new business. And 8.1 is a presentation on the tour, Turner Primary School.
I think I'm going to stand here so everybody can see and sit. So, hello, I'm Kim Fuller, principal at Turner Primary School, for those that don't know me. And so here we go. So this is a snapshot of our enrollment over time. And as you can see, we were fairly steady here, and then we've had a quite a good increase this year. So we're at 308 students. Last year was 372. So as far as October 1st, we had an enrollment of 308 students. Now we have 309. Pre-K, we have 76 students with the 3 classrooms. Kindergarten is our bumper crop this year. We have 5 classrooms with 93 students. And then grade 1, we have 4 classrooms with 71 students, and grade 2, 4 classrooms with 61. The staff, we have 3 pre-K teachers with 3 ed techs, and that is required in a pre-K program. We need 2 adults to every 16 students. Kindergarten, we have 5 teachers. First grade, 4 teachers. Second grade, we have 4 teachers. Our specialists include music, art, library, technology, and phys ed. We have a guidance counselor this year that we were very fortunate to get, and we were creative. She was able to work 3 days a week this year, but she is going to be moving to the 5-day week next year, and we're very excited about that. And we also have spurring services. Special ed, we have 2 teachers. We have our autism support program along with our resource room. We have quite a few ed techs with the needs of our students, so, oops, sorry about that. We have 11 ed techs, 1 position unfilled, and then we have typically 3 ed techs that provide intervention to students, and we only have 1 this year with 2 unfulfilled positions. Some statistics, we have special education for K-2 is at 15%. I may have made some adjustments if you had copies of this. Just going through and making sure I had all the right information. We have currently 24 students in our resource room, which means students that are getting their individual instruction either in the resource setting or maybe being supported in the classroom. And then we have 6 IEPs pending at this time. So it's at 15% currently, which with the pending would go, and that's just pending right now. We just had, I think we'll get more as we move toward the end of the year, but we're at 18%. We also have students in our pre-K program that are serviced through the Child Developmental Services, or CDS. And currently we have 9 students with IEPs, 8 pending, and that's 11%. And those students would be typically going into our kindergarten seats for next year. Our attendance is at 92%. Typically, we like to be at 95 or above. We have been hit hard with the RSV, the flu. We have had some COVID cases, and now we're moving into strep throat. So we have had, and you know, little ones like to share their germs. So, but luckily, we are having some issues with our approaching chronically absent and chronically absent students, but we do not have any truancy at this time. And oops, our free and reduced, as you can see, has dropped over time. And I think, as everybody has said in their presentations, we have struggled to get families to fill out those forms because we are providing free breakfast and lunch to all our students. So goals for this year as being a new admin in this position, I looked at the numbers, and I'm used to creating a goal that is attainable and not knowing, you know, all the nuances of the staff. So we talked about increasing our reading proficiency by 6%, going from 34 to 40 for the spring media scores. The action steps that we've taken, we're doing whole school professional development with our instructional coach, on comprehension strategies, which are a few of them we can talk about. Turn and talk, which is a lot of discussion, small group discussion protocols, teachers conferencing with individual students, and then using read aloud comprehension strategies. Then the staff created goals, and a lot of them chose to integrate the overarching goals for their personal goals. And then they would work with the instructional coach to gain some skills and new strategies. And that has been very, very successful. We go over our data with our grade level groups quarterly, and then, as I said, the instructional coach will work with individual staff or grade level teams to support their goals. We also have a math goal. So again, we were going from 51% to 56% as measured by the NUIA. We are doing some professional development, focusing on strategies. Again, a lot of that discussion, think aloud, sharing their thoughts, doing collaborative problem solving. And again, we go through reviewing our data and setting goals. Because we have not had our interventionists, we only have one right now. We have done a lot more of that, what we call tier 2 support, or kids getting that second dose of instruction or more explicit instruction within the classroom. So I do have to compliment my teachers because they're really working hard to create plans and lessons that can allow for those small groups to take place. We really, one of my goals moving forward is start looking at how we can integrate math into our intervention plan. Because currently Reading has really been the focus, which makes sense, but we also have kiddos that struggle in math, so we want to supply that early intervention. So this is the data which we used to create our goals. And I'm very, very pleased that the winter scores, and again, winter scores are only for our first and second graders. Our kindergartners take a different kind of assessment than the NUIA. But it's very hopeful for the scores. So we're looking at 66.5% of students meeting or exceeding the standard for the winter. And then we have, for reading, we have 62.5. So
Kim, I wonder if it might be helpful for you to just point, like go to that, just to, you know how, just to make sure that people know what number you're looking at.
All right. Sure. So these were our historical scores. And so this year, this was just a snapshot. So this is looking at grade 1 and grade 2. And so looking at the combined, this year we're at 66.5 comparatively to this.
So last year, at the end of the year, was the whole school at 53%, and right now in the winter, you're at 66?
Yes.
That's good news.
Yes. And here we were at 34% for reading, and currently at 62.5%. So, yay.
Yes.
I attribute that, I believe, just kids in seats, having continuity with just less interruptions. So, and the teachers are working really hard. This is a new assessment for our kindergartners. It is called the Early Bird Assessment, and it's a phonics assessment. And so when you're looking at it here, it's not something that I can get grade level data on. It is very individual based, and it's broken down into different skill sets. But visually, what you're looking for when you're looking at progress, the blue for this particular child was in the fall. The blue was areas of concern. And then the instruction happens, and then the winter, you can see the blue is going away.
So that's
And
one
so
kid you're
that's one child, and because I can't do the whole grade level, but it is a nice visual to see. The other action step that we've taken this year is we have, I'm sorry, I have a little math jumping up and down. We're doing a pilot for a systematic phonics program out of University of Florida. And some of the teachers have been taking courses on the science of reading, which is again another way of incorporating phonetic skills into the reading program. So I've been really impressed with the work with this, and you can see the impact.
These all students' names and stuff.
No, this is all the areas that they test,
Okay.
and then this is showing what they need.
So one of those squares is one kid. So all the blue the first time the kid was tested, and then less blue the second time.
Right,
So it's
just
one student
one
looking at their progress. Great.
Okay?
So does every kid have one of those?
Yes. And then the instructional coach, who is Elaine Hammond, she works with kindergarten in formulating groups and reteaching and focusing on what the child needs to move to the white instead of blue. And we also had a goal with looking at our surveys. So it's really staff and families will increase positive attitudes about their experience at Tender Primary School, as measured by the survey. This, I think, was really exciting for the staff because during the COVID, a lot of things shifted and a lot of things just had to be on the back burner. And so a lot of things were brought back or reinstated and fine-tuned. And staff has been really excited about, we have a school-wide, expectation matrix for teaching the students. We have reinstated our universal team, and the students are getting hoop tickets, and they're earning little prizes for drawings, and they're being acknowledged during lunchtime for different characteristics that they're showing during the month, each month. And we are also opening up more. We had open house, we had a grand Halloween parade, we've had conferences, and those were we were in the high 90s for families participating, which was excellent. Just different opportunities. We've had more volunteers coming in. We've had our book fair. We've had parents come in and help with different projects. So that has been a real positive. And then we review our data monthly to see how we're doing in terms of our behavior in the school and how things are going. So this is our climate survey. So this was for staff. So this was positive. So here we are last year to this year. So we increased in every area. Parent involvement went up quite a bit. School safety, that's something that I take very seriously, and we've been working a lot with just tightening up protocols and working with Dave Colbert. Some of our doors needed some fixing, that's all I can say. They're on their way. Yeah, we have, it's been, so a lot of rust. So structure for learning, I was really excited. And this is one, the connectedness for the staff. I think just they've been through a lot in the last several years, and so they're feeling very isolated. And now we're doing a lot to come together. We have our staff meetings, we have our PLCs, we've had events outside of school just to kind of bring that positivity back and that feeling of connectedness. For families, also I think overall families have been pretty satisfied, but looking at parent involvement, that could go up the most, so that was exciting. And instructional environment. And some of the celebrations, I'm not just to say for families, teachers at my student school work hard to make sure that students do well. That was 3.63 out of 4. My students feel safe going to and from school. That was 3.62. And my student is frequently recognized for good behavior. That was another one that increased that we were celebrating to 3.35. And I feel welcome at my student school was 3.65. This one I was really pleased with. Teachers at my student school treat all students with respect. That was 3.62. And I attend parent-teacher conferences. That was 3.92 out of 4. One area of growth is just getting more families to come in and participate with special projects. Pre-K. Any questions? Yes?
So you had a couple of slides before the NWEA slides that, and the numbers don't agree with the NWEA. How do I understand
The
that?
numbers.
Well, so it was like, you're shooting for like improvement from 40% to 46%.
Right, that was my initial.
Right.
Yes, and then
So we actually improved far beyond that?
we improved far beyond
Okay,
that.
thank you. I wanted to
See,
make
I
sure
said I was very cautious being a new principal, and usually that 5% increase is what I'm used to, and I was pleasantly surprised.
Thank you
So
very much.
yes.
Thanks.
Okay.
Questions for?
Anybody else?
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Ken. Thank you very much. That brings us to 8:30.
It's called a conference.
Yeah, I know, I come out with like
It was AMC, I think.
two.
Oh, Kim, did you just close your computer or did you disconnect? Because it says Kim's MacBook. I just discovered what's happening. Yeah, you have to actually like drop it. So just
Don't actually drop it.
click on conference.
So backward.
Yeah, exactly.
I was thinking that might have happened and then I realized, oh, that's
So the toolbar comes down?
it would be easier if we just
Yeah, it says you're not connected. Yep.
Are you Ryan?
I don't think so. Well, the
there we go.
is it showing up as
Ryan,
Oh, there we go.
And Ryan is a former principal. I think he's still in the
Oh, yeah.
And we might have one of their computers, you know, can't see the lobster. So I am talking about Turner Elementary School. It's a wrap. Okay, there we go. So this is our average enrollment by year. Obviously, if you can see, there's a little bit of a bump from 2022 to 2023. That's our sixth grade class, which has 85 students in it, and our average is really around 73. So it's a pretty big bump with our fifth grade class being lower than that. So we're thinking for next year we'll be closer to like the 280 what we're looking for. This is our free and reduced lunch eligibility by year. So similar to what I've heard from other people, and I think it has to do with the free lunches for everyone. So we're down quite a bit from where we were before. This is our staffing. So we have 16 classroom teachers, grades 3 through 6. There's 4 classroom teachers per grade level. We have 4 special ed teachers. 3 of them are resource room special ed teachers, and 1 of them is our district autism support program teacher. For specials, we have, I put them as 0.6 because we share a couple of positions. So the art teacher works at both the primary school and the elementary school. We have an ed tech 3 and then a shared librarian. And those are our specials right down below. So we have guidance, library, PE, technology, and we share our technology person with leads, music, and then band and works are part of music for 4th grade. We have 3 behavioral health professionals from Woodford, so they act as a one-on-one for some students that are eligible for that service, and they're with only that student, and then we contract out with them. And then we use once per link, LCPC, we work with students so that they can get in-school services instead of having to go outside, and then district occupational therapist. And then we also utilize the virtual services for speech and social work 2 days a week.
Yep, and just, Kristen, they're virtual because we could not fill this position.
Right,
So
yes.
we're contracting. Hopefully we'll be able to fill them next year.
And we use an ed tech, one of our ed techs to escort the kids so that kids aren't alone when they're getting that service. But yes, just that's what we needed to do. So here's our average attendance from 2020 through 2023. We are up quite a bit from last year, but just like Kim had said, right now I feel like if anyone says they have strep throat,
tell them to get tested because it seems to be everywhere right now. And I think we've had 4 students who have been identified as truant. 2 of them were in the very beginning of the year, and one of them, they had enrolled in a school in North Carolina, and they did not request a parents, and we could not reach them before this time. And another student, it was a similar kind of situation that we reached out, so they were kind of unique situations. Just like Kim had said, right now, I'm going to jump down to the 3rd row. We have 4 students in the referral process, but we're talking about 3 or 4 more right now. So I suspect that number will be going up. It's like Kim mentioned as well, our advanced tier team is meeting to talk about students who are in need of intervention, and students are kind of going through that cycle or who have been through that cycle and are realizing that they need more support than our intervention services have provided. So we'll be seeing a bump in the referral process, referrals for students in that capacity. We have 67 of our students have an IEP, 14 students have a 504 plan, and then that's 85 of our students who have either special ed or 504. So this is our average data for the surveys from PBIS. Our numbers throughout were up. So last spring when it was done by families, our average was 2.77, and now it's 3.14. We've had a higher number of responses. We felt pretty good about that. As a staff, we've gone through twice now because I looked at the data wrong the first time, but we've gone through and looked at all the individual responses from parents as well, just to see if where we could grow just based on that data. And this is our student survey, so we went up as well from 2.93 to 3.06. And staff survey, we went up with this one as well, with more responses. From the staff survey, I did get feedback from a couple of staff members that they wish there were a few other questions that have been asked on the survey that were really more specific to how we are doing things at TES. So as a result of that survey, we sent out another survey to staff and then looked at that data with our leadership team as well, just to see where else we could grow. Making sure that we are providing, like, one of the things that came out is making sure that specialists have time to meet as a group as well, because it's not in their schedule the same way as for grade level teachers to have that PLC time. So these are our goals. Like Kim had said, some of the goals we are really more focused on, because I was new this year, we didn't have as much we wanted to collect some baseline data first. But our first goal was really on behavioral intervention, and this was a result of interviews that I had with staff, and then if any families came in as well, over the summertime, and then with the leadership team that met over the summertime. And working on our behaviors was a priority for us. So making sure that we have clear, consistent expectations, that our behavioral matrix is visual in classrooms, and that we're really celebrating students. So we've made sure that there's always time. The expectation is we do Wildcat Pride postcards that go out each month by teachers. We've had our student celebration assemblies, and parents have been invited. We do those by the quarter, so there's been 2 of them so far. And the kids that who receive those, like the student of the quarter will get a pizza party, and then we do school-wide celebrations. And the last one was an ice cream party, which everybody had. So again, some of our progress that I mentioned, we do have the behavior matrix in each of our classrooms, and it's throughout the hallways. And when we looked at our student data, that was something that kids said that they were very aware of. One thing that we did notice on our data is that we do want to be more consistent across the board. So with those, just because kids know what our behaviors are, making sure that all staff it's treated the same way regardless. So because sometimes some people can be more tolerant of some behaviors, but it's not helpful for the kids when they have different expectations in different classrooms. We have a behavioral learning target each week. So learning targets have been a huge part of the school this year.
with not just behaviors, but with our academics as well. So there's a behavioral learning target that the school focuses on each week, and that's posted in each of the classrooms and set over the intercom during our morning announcements each morning. As a staff, we've been working on restorative practices. We do a lot with reflections with students and having students fill out reflections, trying to focus on helping them become accountable for their actions and then how to make it right. So yes, they are going to make mistakes. What can we do to fix it? What can we do to make it better? We have done a book study that has to do a lot with restorative practices, which is hacking school discipline. And we're just finishing one up right now on Be the Change. And then our next book study that they seem to be big because we do them in the morning and they're voluntary for staff to do these book studies, and I bring breakfast, so that's probably why people like to come. But our next one is Carrots Over. I wrote it down. It's another restorative practices book study, and that was requested by staff because it does help to have those conversations with kids. Our ed techs have done, and some of our administrative support have done the safety care, not necessarily the whole certification process, but some of the mini sessions during some of our PPAs. And then, like I mentioned earlier, we had the student upload quarter assemblies. So this is our data. I would say August, there are only 2 days, so that wouldn't include that. But if you look at our data, it going down is very, very good. September and October were really tough for us because these are the average amount of referrals that we're getting per day. And I think there's many things that attributes to that. I think one of the big things is that in the very beginning of the school year, we did not have, I would say we honestly we didn't have subs, and we were so short on ed techs. We just hadn't hired everyone. So having bodies and having to help with that student support has been key and huge. And then we have also, at this point, we still have 2 openings for ed techs. One of them is, hopefully, I don't want to say too much, but hopefully we'll have that person hired soon. And we do have subs, and that has been a huge difference because when we have that support in place for our kids, especially our kids who just really need that, it makes a huge difference for all of those kids, not just that 1 or 2 kids who are getting that specific intervention. So that feels much better to me. These are just some pictures, so it's really, really tiny, but that's our behavior matrix that you'll see if you go through the school. The picture up in the corner is one of our ice cream social. That's with our 5th grade class, 5th grade level. And then the picture down in the right-hand corner is from it's not all of the kids, but again, I don't know why I did 2 5th grade classes, but that's also our 5th grade class with the student. Our second goal is based on growth in mathematics and reading. We are doing a pilot for math, how we do our math curriculum, so really trying to make sure that we are paying attention to the data that we have from before and how we're doing now in our mathematics program. Was something that we really wanted to make sure that we were taking a look at, analyzing, and seeing if it is helpful or working for our kids. So some of the activities that we've done so far is we've done a number of activities in our professional development to promote student engagement through some of our book studies. Another book study that we've done is the book Limitless Mind, which is by Joel Bowler, and she does a lot. Another book she wrote is Mathematical Mindsets. So really about talking with kids about mathematics, trying to diminish that idea of kids saying, I'm just not good at math or whatever it might be, and really helping them understand that we all just that there's different learning styles and we all learn differently. In our PLCs, we've done guided discussions on our data, and the data walls have been created for each grade level. Along with the middle school, we've done learning target professional development. Both the middle school and the elementary school are using the same book, and we've been going through that throughout the school year. And then we've done some work on Bloom's taxonomy and finding ways to help differentiate for our students. So
making sure that we're not just teaching to the middle in the classroom. And for some of those students that are high achieving, to make sure that we're providing them with some extension work so they're not bored in class or whatever it might be. Same thing with the students who are needing extra support. So making sure that the curriculum's within their school. And then with the district, we've done curriculum work for social studies, science, and ELA. I mentioned our math pilot. So we are using a combination of Zern and Eureka. Zern is a math learning platform that helps kids explore concepts, discover meaning, and make sense of math. It's an online program, and it works with students on based on their own individual needs. And then Eureka carefully sequences mathematical progressions in modules, making math fun for kids, and it's super engaging. This is from Rachel Genturo, who teaches 4th grade math, and just her take on the Zern and Eureka program. She talks a lot in this quote about our Zern program because teachers will deliver the Eureka math to students, and then they'll have some time to work on their Zern, and it's almost like an intervention period for all kids, so they're getting met in that program where they're at, and then they're practicing some skills from there. This Zern is, yeah, it's like an online platform, yeah. Oh, and just going back to that, so it is an online platform, so teachers can go right in and identify, if they are noticing something with this student, sometimes they can just go back and assign something extra, but it just helps give them that individual. And these are our NEA scores from 2020, the 2020-2021 school year through this winter. And we are, I don't know if you can follow it, but so this is students who are at or above the grade level. So this is the 37% of 3rd grade in 2021, and now those students are 5th graders. So we are continuing here to have a growth. So from last year to this year, we have a 7% increase. Here it's 4%. Our 6th grade has had a 16% increase. So it's on an upward trend, which is nice. Our 3rd goal is on collaboration and lifelong learners. So like Kim had said, it's been a tough 2 years with everything that's happened in our world. So something that we really wanted to work on is making sure that we have time for collaboration, to make sure that there's consistent communication throughout the school system, because the more transparency with that, the better it is for teachers to be able to support their kids, because they know what's going on. And then it also can allow for us to collaborate more. So if we're seeing something, I mentioned behaviors earlier, so if we're seeing that it's not consistent, if behaviors aren't being treated consistently across the school, that's an area for us to work together and calibrate together. But with that, we have to make sure we have communication that allows for that, that professional development to happen. So we have a Google Classroom throughout the school. I know that was, I believe Ms. Gillis used that last year as well. We have a Google Classroom. We do morning emails. I said our staffing is better. It is so much better than it was in the beginning of the school year, but we still are short-staffed almost. I think there was one day we weren't, and then someone had to go home sick. But we almost made it. So every morning it's just really important to make sure we get that out. And I didn't mention it with behaviors, but something else that we've noticed is that our students, and I mentioned it before, but need support with social emotional learning, and so we started using the second step curriculum. So in those morning emails, and also in our weekly emails, I'll include the lessons that staff are to do with their kids each week. So it's just available right there for everyone. So I went through most of this already, but the goals with all of this is just to make sure that there's no, as much as possible, there's no surprises, so that we can focus on our students when we're in school. And last, like Kim had mentioned, we have a goal on safety. So we established an emergency team this year. We have a scheduled meeting every month just to talk about fire drills and lockdowns and all of those kinds of things. But then we also meet as needed throughout the year. There was a situation where one of our students had a crisis at home, and so we met as a team to see how we support that family. So it's been really helpful to have that in those, when we have those impromptu meetings. It's really about either debriefing situations or being able to reach out and support our kids and our community as much as possible. And then we have had 3 staff complete the full CSTAG training, and we just have implemented or sent out the 3 CSTAG training that the other staff has completed.
And that's the threat assessment training that
Yes.
we did. So you've heard it, it's called 2 different things.
Yes. Yeah, the comprehensive school threat assessment guide.
Right.
I looked it up right before. Right, so that's what we have.
But don't forget to disconnect before you
Oh,
check.
yes.
It'll be locked down tomorrow.
Questions on that presentation? Thanks again for sharing the good work in both of the schools.
Thank you very much.
That brings us to item 8.3, and that's first reading and acceptance of revised policy GCOC, evaluation of administrative staff. Motion on that one. Crystal, Jessica, Jamie, do you have any preference on who would like to be the second for that? Take it first. Crystal. And Jessica, second. Discussion on this one? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous. Item 8.4, approval of November expenditures and operating reports, and approval to revise December 8th, 2022 minutes to reflect corrections.
So shall we explain? And Gabby, you can jump in as well. Everybody had the right documents back in when we did the December 8th meeting. Unfortunately, the motion had the wrong month. So when you go back to the minutes for December 8th, finance, here we go. The motion read that we approved the November operating expenditure reports, but it was actually the December.
September.
September. Jeez, bro. This took us like
That's how
8 years.
it works, okay?
This is how bad. We realized that the motion wasn't right, but the documents
The
were right.
documents that were reviewed were from September,
Right.
but the agenda, the motion said they were November's.
So we need to just correct the minutes so that it reflects that you approved September's.
So from a clarity standpoint, perhaps those are 2 separate things? Or shall I ask the folks that made the motion?
I'm fine with it just being amended to say
You're
September.
fine with both things?
yes, yes.
And the second?
Agreed.
Discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Unanimous? Thank you for catching us up that.
Crystal made the motion on
I
that
don't
one
know
too,
that we
right?
had a
Did we not have a motion?
I don't know that we had a motion.
For the one we just did? You read it.
No, you're probably right.
Oh,
Yeah.
I think she read it.
Oh, sorry about that.
Because you needed to explain.
I explained it, now we need a motion. Thank you.
Entirely my fault. Sorry about that.
Well, I was trying to make sure that I-
Such enthusiasm about around the motion for the last time that I just
I will make a
carried over.
motion to amend it to September.
And do the approval as well, or? Yeah, we have a second for that.
I'll second.
Well, let's
Thank you,
get
Kyle. Appreciate that.
Kyle get a chance.
So we'll try the discussion again. Does anybody want a second go at discussing this one? If not, all those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. So the remaining items are all executive sessions, and they are an executive session to conduct a student expulsion hearing pursuant to 1 MRSA 40516. We are in executive session to discuss the Tri-Town Education Association teachers negotiation pursuant to 1 MRSA 40560. And they are also a request for an executive session to discuss the contract for the superintendent of schools pursuant to 1 MRSA 40560D. For folks who are watching along at home. I would entertain a motion for 8.5. And that is for a student expulsion hearing. Crystal, and second, Anthony. All those in favor? Unanimous? So we will... Library.
Minutes